The game is on. Everyone around you is reacting to every play like their lives depend on it. And you're sitting there, completely unmoved. You've learned to stay quiet about it. Because the moment someone finds out you don't follow sports, the assumption forms instantly something must be missing in you. But neuroscience says otherwise. To understand the person who doesn't care, you first have to understand why so many people care so intensely. Go back far enough in human history, and survival was a group project. You belonged to a tribe, or you didn't survive. Over thousands of years, the human brain developed a powerful instinct around belonging, treating exclusion like a genuine threat and group membership like a lifeline. Modern sports plug directly into that wiring. Your city against theirs, your colors against theirs. A clear in-group, a clear opponent, shared rituals, and a communal emotional experience that pulses through an entire stadium simultaneously. When a favorite team scores, the brain doesn't treat it as theater. Dopamine floods the reward system. Testosterone levels measurably rise. Studies monitoring sports fans found genuine hormonal shifts during wins and losses, biological responses nearly identical to what our ancestors experienced after a successful hunt or territorial defense. Research even captured this during the 2008 U.S. presidential election, where men whose preferred candidate won showed measurably higher testosterone than those whose candidate lost. The brain processes symbolic victory and biological victory through the same hardware. Sports simply found a way to trigger it every weekend. For people who don't obsess over sports, that tribal switch exists. It just doesn't flip at the same threshold or for the same triggers. Their loyalty requires something more grounded to attach to than geography. Shared values, mutual effort, a connection that wasn't assigned by zip code and doesn't disappear when a player gets traded. The standard sports arrangement presents a quiet problem for these minds. The team you're expected to defend runs on a roster that changes constantly, managed by owners whose loyalty is entirely financial, in a league that would relocate the franchise overnight if a better deal came through. The emotional contract asks for unconditional devotion in exchange for borrowed victory. For some nervous systems, that transaction simply doesn't compute. This isn't cynicism, it's discernment. These people find belonging in communities where connection is reciprocal and stable, built around shared ideas, craft, and relationships that don't reset every season. Their tribal switch fires, just not here. Being a genuine fan isn't passive. It requires real mental maintenance rosters, histories, statistics, rivalries, strategy, trades, and storylines stretching across decades. That's a serious cognitive commitment. Many people who don't follow sports have already allocated that same capacity elsewhere. Their attention consolidated early around something else. Markets, music, systems. A skill being built slowly, a subject studied deeply, a project demanding sustained focus over years. The passion slot is already occupied. There's often an unconscious calculation underneath this time spent tracking someone else's performance statistics versus time spent developing an actual capability. Emotional energy tied to outcomes completely outside your control versus energy invested where effort compounds and produces results. People who don't obsess over sports haven't withdrawn from engagement. They've concentrated it somewhere that returns more to them personally. Inside the human brain are neurons that activate not only when you perform an action, but when you watch someone else perform it. This is why your body tenses watching someone stumble, why an athlete pushing through exhaustion can make your chest tighten as if you were running the same race. Neuroimaging studies show that fans watching their sport activate the same motor and reward circuits as the players on the field. On a neurological level, the observer isn't just watching, they're simulating, borrowing the experience from a distance. But this system requires identification. You have to see a bridge between yourself and the person you're watching. Without that bridge, the simulation weakens and the emotional payoff never arrives. People who don't follow sports aren't missing this mechanism. Their mirror neurons fire for different figures. The musician is executing something technically demanding. The craftsman shapes raw material into something precise. The thinker articulating a complex idea with sudden clarity. The same borrowed thrill just aimed at different heroes. It was never about capacity. It was always about who they chose to identify with. Sports are social currency, the universal handshake, the default conversation starter that works across offices, family dinners, and awkward silences. When you don't have a team, you don't have the key that unlocks those rooms. And the moment someone discovers this, there's a micro-silence, sometimes a joke, sometimes a look that's harder to shake than intended. Over the years, those moments accumulate. The brain searches for an explanation and concludes, wrongly, that something functional must be missing internally. What's actually happening is a mismatch, not a deficiency. Disinterest gets misread as judgment. Neutrality gets perceived as coldness. But people who don't follow sports haven't failed to develop social tools. They've developed different ones. Without a default topic to fall back on, they've had to go deeper, faster. You can't hide behind last night's score, so you learn what someone actually thinks, what they're building, what keeps them up at night. The surface drops sooner. The relationships that survive without sports talk tend to be the ones that hold up under almost anything. Sports, at their best, create total absorption. For a few hours, the internal noise goes quiet. Attention narrows to one unfolding moment, and everything else softens. Psychologists recognize this as a genuinely restorative mental state. People who don't follow sports aren't exempt from needing that state. They access it through different entries. The workshop, where hours pass unmarked. The instrument that absorbs everything the moment your hands move. Any sustained creative act where the mind becomes fully present and time loses its ordinary shape. The distinction isn't escape versus engagement. Sports pull attention outward into someone else's unfolding story. Other forms of absorption direct attention inward into something being created or solved. One consumes a finished drama. The other lives inside one that isn't finished yet. Neither is the correct path. They restore different nervous systems in different ways. People who don't obsess over sports aren't standing outside of life watching it pass. They're participating in quieter arenas, with fewer witnesses, in pursuits that don't come with crowd noise. Their silence during the game isn't emptiness. Its concentration is directed somewhere else. Most of them understand the pull of sports completely. They see the joy, the traditions, the shared memory it creates for others. They simply know their attention belongs somewhere else. Attention is the most valuable resource a person has. Where it goes consistently is what a life is made of. Some people dedicate theirs to watching championships unfold. Others to building things that didn't exist before they started. The only real mistake is spending years being ashamed of which one you are. If this puts words to something you felt but never quite said, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is here for.